There you touch the inmost mystery of these dreamers, these men of vision and the imagination. We see our world fair and common, the hoarding and the pit. By our daylight standard, he walked out of security into darkness, danger and death. But did he see it like that?
Anytime we attempt to look at particles beyond a certain level, the very act of observation changes things.
It means that the more liberty you give, the more you allow things in yourself and in your surroundings to take place, the more order you will have.
And in addition, the more you look at individual particles, the more you realize that there is no such thing as one electron. An electron, or any elementary particle, exists only in relationship to other things, like other particles or the universe at large. This means that deeply enough, when you dive down into the nature of matter, everything we know about the everyday world dissolves. There are no objects anymore, there are only relationships. There's no locality anymore, there's no time anymore. The more you look at something in detail, in what we think of as solid matter, the less and less solid it begins to look.
There's an old story about an Indian king who one day woke up in the morning and turned to his bedside and looked at himself in the mirror. He had a mirror like this. You know, these old bronze mirrors, which used to be polished on one side and then had a design of some kind on the other. And here he was with the mirror beside his bed, and he was kind of bleary-eyed in the morning, and he picked it up and looked into the wrong side. And he said, "Where's my head? I've lost it." And he summoned all his attendants and started running around all over his apartment looking for his head. And when the attendants arrived, they said, "But your majesty, O king, live forever. It's still on your shoulders. You looked in the wrong side of the mirror." And that story is told as an illustration of what is, after all, the greatest theme of Indian philosophy: the recollection or remembering of something that mankind as a whole seems to have forgotten.
Everybody's got, the majority of them is not involved. They are functioning on something like 3% of their entire knowledge. And it's a matter of digging deeper and deeper to get that ancient history to come forward and to turn what is a recessive knowledge or dormant knowledge into an active knowledge.
I do not possess the minute-to-minute remembrances of each person, although the more intense recollections are contained in my memory banks.
I've known rivers. I've known rivers ancient as the world and older than the flow of human blood in human veins. My soul has grown deep like the rivers. I bathed in the Euphrates when dawns were young. I built my hut near the Congo, and it lulled me to sleep. I looked upon the Nile and raised the pyramids above it. I heard the singing of the Mississippi when Abe Lincoln went down to New Orleans, and I've seen its muddy bosom turn all golden in the sunset. I've known rivers, ancient, dusky rivers. My soul has grown deep like the rivers.
He saw total reality as being one thing, didn't he? One substance, of which all apparently different objects, and indeed people like ourselves, are merely facets, merely modes, merely aspects. This is a very difficult idea, I think, for most people to grasp at a first.
And what Spinoza maintains is that every wrinkle in the total fabric of the one substance, these wrinkles he calls modes, and that is the proper understanding of what we think of as self-subsistent things: tables, chairs, our wife's family, whatever it might be. various identifiable items that have clear, definite contours. For Spinoza, they're just temporary contours taken on by the fabric of everything that there is.
Like waves in the sea.
Today, the buzzword in memory research is reconsolidation. Researchers have discovered that a memory, once stored, can not only be retrieved, but also can be manipulated, then restored or reconsolidated as a new memory.
The human mind is like a computer. No matter how efficient it may be, its reliability is only as great as the information fed into it. If it is possible to control the input of the human mind, then no matter how intelligent a person may be, it's entirely possible to program what he will think. And yes, it's even possible to program people to laugh at the mere mention of the word conspiracy.
So much of what is actually going on, factual history, has been hidden. And that's one of the things, that's one of the reasons why the world is in so much confusion.
When you're thinking about something you don't understand, you have a terrible, uncomfortable feeling called confusion. It's a very difficult and unhappy business. And so most of the time you're rather unhappy, actually, with this confusion. You can't penetrate this thing. Now, the confusion is because we're all some kind of apes that are kind of stupid, working against this, trying to figure out to put the two sticks together to reach the banana, and we can't quite make it, the idea. And I get that feeling all the time that I'm an ape trying to put the two sticks together. So I always feel stupid. Once in a while, though, the sticks go together on me, and I reach the banana.
Because there are two realities operating, at work right now on the earth. There's the one you see and you understand, the one everyone lives by. That's one reality. But the actual reality of the world is far, far different. There's a whole hidden world of symbolism, words, and terms, and emblems, national coats of arms, halotry, flags, corporate logos. There's a whole underworld.
Well, let's start with Aristophanes. He's got a powerful speech about the nature of erotic love. What does he say?
Now, originally, he says, there were 3 different sexes of human beings, not just 2, male and female. There was male, female, and hermaphrodite, a mixture of the male and female. And we were initially spherical. We were completely round. We had 4 arms, 4 legs, 2 heads, 2 faces, 2 sets of genitalia. We rolled around the surface of the earth like acrobats. And this race got very uppity. They got very above themselves. And the Greek gods, led by Zeus, were wondering what to do about them. And they thought, well, if we kill them all off, yes, that will get rid of the threat, but then we also get rid of all the libations and sacrifices and adulation of us. So they thought, well, what we'll do is we'll cut them all in half. So we'll weaken them, but we'll multiply their numbers and we'll get more libations and sacrifices. So Zeus orders Hephaestus, the blacksmith god, to cut these human-like creatures, these spherical creatures, in half. And so now we get these pathetic, sawn-off creatures with 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 face, set of genitalia in the wrong place. And they kind of mope around the world, literally looking for their other half. And Aristophanes says this is what Eros is. It is this search for your literal other half, your physical and spiritual other half. And it is the desire to be reunited with your other half and to achieve your original state. It's a quest for what you've lost.
Basically, they're like twins who were raised in totally different environments. And not for a week or 2, but for 1,000,000 years or so. And they came back together in Africa, in the Olduvai Gorge area and Djibouti, in that general area on the coast of the Red Sea, which at one time used to be the Red River there. And they allowed the ocean to come in, which made it into a sea. In any event, when they came back together, if you want to see the allegory of that, you watch the movie called Twins with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito. Nobody would stop for a minute and say, how can these be twins when one's big and muscular, the other one's short and fat?
The other one got like the leftover.
And that's what the Neanderthaler's problem is. The Neanderthaler says, look, this is a partnership. I have donated everything I have, my intelligence, and have helped you to make your life easier because you used to be a clan mother, a hermaphrodite, and you could only clone copies of yourself. I taught you how we could come about by changing some of your genetic material, end up with two genders, so that half of you could be the clan mothers and the other half could be task-oriented males and go about doing the tasks that support you. Now you have an easy life with all these people supporting you, and you ignore me, the guy who made it all happen. I made the male by making the X into a Y. I broke one of the legs off of the X, and the Y chromosome came about, and that's your male. And you now have a slave, but you now ignore me. So the Neanderthaler began to say, if I can't be appreciated for what I did, I'm going to take power away from you. And the clan mother would say, you can't take the power away from me. You can't even get around. Can't walk. Can't do the things you need to do. And the Neanderthaler said, let me think about that. Eventually, what he came up with, I'm going to piggyback inside of the next eggs I make. And he inserted his DNA as the between brain or interbrain. He put his DNA so that the person who would be born, whether male or female, could no longer access the information in the gray matter in the spine without it going through him on the way to the brain. It was a sensor that felt what the spine had in mind, and you ended up with hair on your head. And the only people who could give the Neanderthalers a problem were the males of the species that they separated because they were physically stronger. So they made sure that along the way, males would lose their hair. That's where male pattern baldness comes from. And for the purpose of assisting this process, for those that wouldn't become bald, they made it a fact of their religion that they had to put their hair up and cover it with a hat. And in, of course, time, that evolved into a turban in the East, and suggestion that men should have short hair, so they would cut their hair. But the wise men who were judges in court were made to wear wigs, because that was a symbol that you were a complete person. You had access to your intuition. Although it was phony hair, it didn't work, but it was a symbolic thing. So the thing to remember on this is, if you want to access the information called intuition in your spine, and by having lived a long time from the beginning of mankind at, say, about 200,000 BC, that's where the archives are, is in your spine. You can no longer access it internally because you've been genetically modified to impose upon you the will of a Neanderthaler. But if you let your hair grow and hang freely beyond your shoulders, it's like a radio antenna looking for signals from the spine. And it circumvents the Neanderthaler and brings information into your head, so that you can then go through the process not only of having reasoned things out, but also to confirm it through your intuition.